Good morning, conscious capitalists. We're really excited to have this great program today with the folks at RTS to hear a little bit about their journey of well-being and inclusion. I think we talk so much at Conscious Capitalism Rochester about the principles of conscious capitalism, and I know that there's some attendees filtering in, some of whom are first timers at a conscious capitalism meeting. So the short version is that there's four key tenets of conscious capitalism. One is that there's a higher purpose beyond just making profits. These companies, you need profits to survive, but the purpose of the company can and maybe even should go beyond that in the ways that it can engage employees, certainly get customers to want to support you, get the community to surround and support you. And we're going to hear a lot about that community involvement today, certainly. The next is a stakeholder orientation. So along similar lines, rather than prioritizing just the needs of the stockholders, how do we balance the needs of the customers, the community, the employees, the environment, really this whole ecosystem that it needs to surround and support a business for its long-term health and well-being. The next is conscious leadership. So we're going to hear from some conscious leaders today, but hopefully many of you are also here because you're on your own conscious leadership journey. And that's really about, being a servant leader, really, not an old school command and control, but really embodying the values of the organization, empowering your team. And the last of the four is a conscious culture. And we're going to hear a lot about conscious culture today in terms of how do you prioritize the well-being of employees. It really prioritize the way that, that they're finding fulfillment and ability to learn and grow. And so we have these four principles of conscious capitalism, and many people finish reading one of the books, or maybe they read a story about a company that's really far along in their journey, and they say, well, that's great, but how do I get started? And so that's why we're going to work into our monthly meetings a few more case studies over the next several months, and really excited to have RTS and the RTS Culture and Inclusion Council here with us today to talk about their journey. So they're going to talk a little bit about what started it, what they've learned along the way, where they are now. Certainly, as always, please put questions into the chat in terms of anything that you have any questions that you have, anything you'd like to know. We will make sure to leave plenty of time for questions at the end, and we'll be able to have Renee, who's gonna lead the kind of overview of the discussion, and we'll also have the Culture and Inclusion Council members that can answer questions as well from their perspective. So without further ado, Renee, I'll make you host so you can share your screen and you can take it away.
Great, thank you. See. Can everyone see this presentation?
I can.
All right. Well, we will get started. Thank you so much, Andrew, for inviting us today to be part of this group. Our council here is excited to share just a little bit about what we've been doing for the last few years. Actually, it's even a little bit longer than that, as we'll demonstrate. But we've learned a lot, and just happy to share this with the team. Some of the things we're going to touch on today are just establishing a little bit more about RTS, our vision and mission and values, how this really plays into all of our employee life cycle here at our organization. Then again, why are we doing this? We spent a long time really figuring all of that out. One very important part of it is obviously getting our employee feedback, and also how we took some great experience on a program we had created, our wellness program, and really used that to implement the changes here in the development of our Culture and Inclusion Council, and then really kind of how it all ties together. So RTS, as many people probably are familiar, we're public transportation here, not only in Monroe County, but also in our 7 surrounding counties. And also we provide paratransit through RTS Access. And our values. We have key values that really guide and operate all that we do here in our organization. One of those values is diversity and inclusion, and that's what we're going to talk a little bit more about today. The employee life cycle here at RTS. So when we think about our employees, there's so many different parts of their experience and their journey in being here with us. Obviously, there's important parts of becoming an employee, how you grow and you develop, what your career path is. But really, one of the things that's very, very important is, the wellness piece of it, the benefits, the recognition, being included, feeling like you're part of the organization and what you do each and every day matters and is important. And that's where all of this really fits in. So when we started talking about why we should focus on this, it was kind of obvious at one point that our community is changing. Public transportation is different than it used to be, that's for sure. That being said, our customers are different, and what they want, they need, as well as what they expect has shifted as well as evolved over the years, especially with technology. And then also, of course, our community continues to grow and is more diverse each and every day. That being said, for us to be an organization that's successful, we need to make sure that our employees understand our customers and what they want so that we can deliver on our mission and our vision and make sure we're providing high quality service. And
Renee,
then,
I'm
yep.
sorry to interrupt, but we've got some participants asking if you can put it into presentation mode because the slides are really hard to see.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize it wasn't. Hold on one second. Thank you, Sarah.
Sorry about that.
No, I'm sorry. I was sorry you didn't tell me sooner. Let's see. Give me 1 second. Is that better?
Yes, that's
Got it.
perfect.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. And then really going back to why we're doing this too is we need to make sure our employees are engaged and able to work together cohesively and collaborate and be a successful team in order for us to really be successful as an organization. So this slide kind of indicates, as I said, that we've been working on this for a while, our journey, and these are just kind of some key milestones over the last 6 years of where we started, what we've learned, and where we've grown. We have a wellness program, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about in depth, and then also, as you can see, where we incorporated diversity and inclusion into our values, and then really focusing on how we bring and create this culture each day at our workplace. Our leadership team participated in some training out in the community with the YWCA. We established our council, which you'll hear a lot more about, and then really the progress of the council the last 2 years. So we'll go into much more depth about that. One of the important things at RTS is really measuring our employee engagement index. And what that means is that we have these set 4 questions, and twice a year we ask our employees these, we survey them. And we really use this information to help us get a pulse on how engaged our employees are. And when we talk about engaged employees, it means that we have employees showing up who are feeling good, they're doing their best, and they're ready to make sure that each day is a successful day at RTS for our employees, but also our customers. One of the important parts of this semi-annual survey, though, is it not only asks these 4 questions that are good indicators of our employee engagement, but we ask employees 2 open-ended questions. And these questions are, 1, what is great? What's good that you really like here at RTS? What should we keep doing? And we have employees give all sorts of wonderful comments and feedback. And the other question is, what are some opportunities? What could we do differently, do better? What suggestions do you have? Concerns? So in 2018, a lot of our employees were saying things about the wellness program. They loved the variety in it. They loved the different opportunities that it was bringing each day. The overall theme out of what we were hearing our employees say, though, is that it was getting people together. It was bringing people together and creating friendships and relationships that then were impacting teamwork together, getting to know each other, and really kind of setting that tone each day when people came to work. This was a place that they wanted to be, and when they showed up each day, they knew that their boss cared about them. They knew that they had coworkers that cared about them. So it meant more than just showing up for the job. With that, we said, let's really capitalize on this employee wellness program. It's focused on being holistic, so it's not just about going and running a couple miles and eating carrots. It's about how do we care for our employees as a whole person, not only just at the workplace, but outside of work too, because they have families and friends and social connections that are important. So how do we leverage that? And that's where we really started developing an even more inclusive wellness program. We have a wellness committee, which some of our members of our council are on. We have representation from our regional locations to make sure that they are part of the decisions and the programs and what people want and need. And then from there, we really started developing our council in the RTS Way. So a little bit of background on the wellness program, just so you have a good idea of really kind of how we leverage the success in it, is that it's holistic. Like I said, there's a lot of different parts to it, but some of the ones that we found to be really, really successful, we're focusing on prevention and education. So obviously we want our employees to feel good. We want them to be healthy and well. We establish a lot of things that make it easy and convenient right at the workplace, showing that obviously we want to make sure people are taken care of, make it as easy as possible. You can see we obviously have a lot of fun in what we do too. So not only are we encouraging our employees to take care of themselves and their health, but we've done some different things around important topics such as breast cancer awareness, as you can see in the one picture, featuring some of our members to be part of the Real Men Wear Pink campaign. And people just had so much fun with it that they took it upon themselves to then get pink bunny suits and go around and talk to people and get them to smile and remember that, not only are they having a good time and having some fun at work, but they're also seeing that there's very important health topics and things to focus on too. One of the other parts that's very important in our wellness program is our community partnerships. And that's really where a lot of those help drive some of the work that the council's been doing too. So we work really closely with Food Link, Fleet Feet Sports in the community, the public market, mobile mammography, the U of R wellness team. One that's been really successful is the partnership with Food Link and their curbside markets. So Food Link does great work in our community, and we have a lot of goals that overlap with each other, but not only do they come over to RTS and our sites and help our employees have easy and affordable access to fresh fruits and vegetables. In turn, we have bus operators and members of our employee workforce that then go out and talk about this program with other folks in the community and their customers. So it's been a really great collaborative effort and being also very inclusive in our goals for our organizations. So when we took all of those things that we learned from our wellness program, we used those into really kind of shaping where we were going with the focus on culture and diversity and inclusion. So in 2018, we really took this research, formalized it, and said, RTS is absolutely committed to this. We are committed to fostering and cultivating and preserving a culture of diversity and inclusion within our organization and our community. We used our employee feedback, as you could see from our survey that we were conducting twice a year and still do, and really helped leverage all of that input and experience into creating our council and those goals. So we have some very specific goals, pretty straightforward. Our goals around diversity and inclusion obviously include education, gaining better awareness and understanding of this and how it impacts us as an organization and our community. taking then the time to really understand what influences our behaviors and who we are for each person when they show up to work each day. And then really how all of this impacts our environment at work and how people work together and learn and are curious and want to know one another, develop those relationships. So as we progressed, one of the next steps to help us then fulfill and meet these goals was creating a council. And this council is really unique. So in 2018, this employee action group started coming together. We did a recruitment campaign. So we created a kind of like a job description for the council members. The responsibilities, as you can see, were really to be someone who wants to be involved, who wants to be creative, be open-minded, and be part of influencing some change and making a difference here. We offered this opportunity to all employees. One of the things that we're very proud of, and that was we spent a lot of time on, was really developing the relationship with our union to make sure we had their full support so that employees could participate and be part of all of the meetings and the trainings. And then we also created a charter for the council that it was established as a framework, but then when the council was established, we worked together to really make sure it was what we wanted it to be and to represent who we are. So in early 2019, we officially launched the Culture and Inclusion Council. It consisted of 16 members, including a couple co-chairs and an executive sponsor. During the research and planning of the council, we spent a lot of time trying to find some great best practices and also more partners in our community who could help us. Knowing that this was going to be new for RTS, we wanted to make sure that we were thoughtful and careful in planning this out and making sure that we took our time to organize it, but also leverage on a lot of great experts in our community. So we were fortunate enough to partner up with Kit Miller from the Gandhi Institute for Nonviolence, and she spent a long time with the group helping us build a relationship together, learn and create a common language, and really help us build the strategies and the techniques to have respectful communication. The council spent a lot of time working together, and then mid-year created a survey that we shared with all of our employees, once again, to get input and to determine really what our focus should be and how we wanted to go about doing that. So we were putting together the right tools and tactics. And we learned about how people wanted to communicate, how they wanted to interact, and then some things that they were really interested in discussing, as you can see. The council also then established a vision and a mission with goals. So in order to kind of bring all of the survey input we had received to life, we knew we needed to do this. And as you can see, this is a nice photo of our current group. There's representation from across the organization. And this group has been working together, like I said, almost 2 years now. Over the last year, this council has really grown and progressed. They've been very involved in a lot of our community events and advocacy, not only as a team, but also individuals who have grown personally and created and developed some new interests of their own. We've been part of a lot of trainings in the Rochester area. We currently, the members of the council and many others at RTS are participating in the 21-day Racial Equity Challenge, where we're learning a lot, and these are all things that are helping guide these conversations in the workplace and the forums and conversations we'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. Some of the other things that help us meet our goals for a council is making sure that we have a consistent presence in our communications, good visibility, and then as an organization, we've been very proud to sign on with the RMAPI Employer Pledge and also endorsing the Greater Rochester Black Agenda Group's declaration around racism being a public health crisis. So to tell even a little bit more about some of these very key things that we've been focusing on, some of our council members will chat about those.
That's where I come in. Hi everyone, I'm Enza West. Thank you for having us today. So as Renee had mentioned previously, we conducted a survey and our workforce indicated that they would like more opportunities to connect with one another and talk about various topics and find some common ground. And that they would like that delivered both virtually and in person. We were getting our feet wet and figuring out how we were going to deliver that when COVID hit, which was actually more of a need than ever to have our employees connect with one another, given that we were all quarantined. So we launched it online. We had 3 sessions over the summer. The main topic was on COVID. We try to keep it on current events at the moment and kind of let our participants steer what they want to talk about, and council members join in as well. And we just try to keep everyone on task and connecting, and that's how they feel. They feel connected and lighter after these forums. We have some more coming up this month. We had some last week, and we have some more this week, and everyone comes out of it feeling very positive.
Thanks, Enza. My name is Sarah Molyneux. And another aspect that we've recently launched is our IDEA program. IDEA stands for Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Access. And that's an acronym that many companies have used for similar programs. And we decided that this would be a good way to help populate those connection conversations that Enza was talking about. If everybody has a shared vocabulary, so what this program allows us to do is every Tuesday we post a short story or a video or an article to help encourage conversations peer-to-peer or manager to team. So here's some examples of some of these visuals that we post. We put them through our digital monitors, we put them on our interweb, we send out flyers, and it's really building on some of the things that Kip Miller taught our original council about lifelong learning, and just helping to give people the tools to cultivate conversations to encourage belonging and connection while still understanding our differences. And now I'm going to turn it over to Karen to talk a little bit about our recruitment process.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm Karen Gayton. And 2 years into our council, 2 years plus into our council, we started experiencing some natural attrition. We currently have 12 members, and we realized we needed to recruit for more members. And we had some goals as far as that recruitment. We wanted to get even more diversification across the entire organization. So part of that was we asked ourselves, how are we going to bring in these new members and make them more part of the group that has already been working together for 2 years? So we developed a committee, a recruitment committee, to discuss what we could do in order to bring everybody together and learn the same things. And we came up with a few ideas, and some of those were to pull together best practices of what we went through as a team for the first 2 years to get to know each other, icebreakers, trust practices, as Renee mentioned, working with Kit. The next part was to come up with a toolkit for the new members so that they didn't have to go through the entire 6-month process that we did, but we could give them everything that we had and go over it with them in a PowerPoint so that they could come on board a little bit more quickly than we did, so that we could keep running with the organization and continue to do the good things we're doing. The next thing that the committee came up with was a mentor program. Now, obviously, all of these things are things that have not even taken place yet. These are just ideas because we are currently in the recruitment process and our new members won't start till January. The mentor program would be 2 current members of the council will be the person for individuals that are coming on board so that they could really get to know that person, help steer them, answer any questions they have, and so forth. And then, of course, coming up with group exercises and icebreakers in advance of all of the new members coming on board so that they can feel comfortable with the group and build that trust that took us 6 months in a more quick fashion. Next, we also asked everybody currently in the council to tell us what council or culture and inclusion means to each of us and what things kind of stood out. So we have a couple of members who actually gave us some quotes that we have videos for, and one of those members is here. Can we play the video or have that individual say what their quote was?
Hi, I'm Jose Fernandez from RTS Access. I'm a technician here. I'm in Culture and Inclusion Council, and what that means to me is when I explain it to others, I tell them we're not just people from different backgrounds, races, and ethnicities, but different parts of the company as well, from the top to the bottom. But when we meet, we're all equal. Each of our voices is as powerful as the next. To me, this is important. I really enjoy that about our group. We respect one another and treat each other equal within the council.
And then we have one more.
Okay, so I'm just going to elaborate on what the membership on the Culture and Inclusion Council means to me. And it means several things actually, but the biggest thing is, like the title says, inclusion, because that's the biggest thing that makes me feel really well, is that I get to be included in something and also being accepted. So I feel included and I feel accepted, and at the same time I get a chance to learn people's personalities, learn different situations, different cultures. I get to learn so much. So it's a learning experience, but I enjoy it, and I get to, like I said, be included and be a part of something.
Thanks, Renee. So finally, what we are doing is we are actually presenting to each one of our satellite areas and the regional offices, and as well as Access, what culture and inclusion is all about, and asking people to get more involved, because one of our biggest goals was to get more representation from those satellite offices. We currently have 16 individuals who have applied to be part of culture and inclusion starting next year, and we still have an additional event occurring at Access on Thursday. So we're hoping to get even more individuals coming forward for the group for next year. So we're pretty excited about that. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Karen. So as you can see, we've been able to develop and really bring our organization together. But as Karen said, we're in that process of recruiting more members and growing as a team, because we've recognized that there's definitely areas that we need to better represent. So then when we take all of these things and what we've been doing, bringing it back to that employee life cycle, and how does it really impact then all of the other areas of work. I'll turn it over to Amy Gould.
Amy, I'm sorry, you're on mute.
Thank you. Do you know how many times a day I do this? Good morning. I'm Amy Gould. Thanks for having us this morning. Thanks, Renee, for getting us to this point. I just want to summarize what it means really in terms of an employee and how we bring this to life throughout an employee's life cycle at work, right? From the moment they come on board or when we're recruiting them, through how we interact with them and give them feedback, through career training and professional development. You know, we want to be a destination workplace. And in order to do that, we have to walk the talk and make sure that people understand what we're about and what our culture is about. So as we do that, we embed some of those principles throughout an employee's life cycle. One of those being, right now, we do have a job shadowing program. Of course, that's very difficult when we're in a social distancing environment, but that is something that has been brought to life, and we're hoping that we can get back to that as hopefully we come back to the workplace more and more. We also have a formalized succession planning process where we look at candidates within our workforce and try to identify who might be ready now, who might be ready in the near future and in the far future for leadership roles. And how do we get to that point where we are really able to say that we're a diverse organization and how we embed this within our succession planning process. So it comes down to our accountability, how we express our values, and of course then our culture. And that really feeds into having engaged employees. As Renee mentioned, we do a survey twice a year, an employee index to understand just how engaged our workforce is, because we know the benefits of having engaged employees, right? They embrace our mission, they feel empowered, they make good decisions, they come to the workplace with a positive attitude and ready to build a strong organization. So it's really important for us to understand how engaged our workforce is, and really just as important to understand where our opportunities are with folks who might not be as engaged, and how do we impact those employees and bring them into being one of those engaged employees for us. And I think at this point, I believe Dan was going to talk about the RTS Way.
Yes, thanks, Amy. And what I'd like to say first to the attendees here is that if you have any interest in starting a movement, let's say, like this in your company, the first thing you should do is surround yourself with great, passionate people like my fellow council members. As you can see from this presentation, these are all folks dedicated to the mission of culture and inclusion recognition, and it's paying dividends. The RTS Way, as Amy mentioned, is something that I would describe as making the agency's mission a tangible way of showing people exactly what it means, and it recognizes the fulfillment of the mission. If we can go to the next slide, please. So here we have two examples of how we recognize the RTS Way. One is on the right is the RTS Way card, which employees can fill out when they see a fellow employee or employees really step up and show exactly what the RTS Way mission means. And it's really it allows employees to recognize each other in a visible yet personal, customized manner. The same with the boards on the left. Those we've recently put up, and you can already walk around the buildings here at RTS, and you just stop and read some of these things, and you can see the teamwork coming to life. And it really means a lot to see those things, and actually to be able to write them as well. So this all helps us. The RTS Way, it wouldn't work without there being this culture of well-being and inclusion. It allows us to treat each other in a respectful and welcoming manner. And what does that lead to? Well, it leads to many things: having a great place to work, wanting to come to work, and a sense of belonging and teamwork. And eventually, what does that lead to? Tying it all together, it leads to RTS being able to fulfill its mission, and obviously bringing great service to customers, which is what we're all about. Thank you.
Well, thank you everyone on our team for being part of this, and Andrew and the group, thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to share just a little bit about what we've been doing, what we've learned along the way, where we continue to grow, and where a lot of our great connections within our community and the wonderful resources out there are helping us keep moving forward on this. So thank you very much.
Thank you all. Such an inspiring presentation, and Renee, I really am grateful that you brought in so many of your members of your council, because I think that really added a lot to the discussion, and certainly they'll be able to field some questions as well, which can further add. But it just, as you were talking, it just kept reminding me of our mission at Conscious Capitalism Rochester. You know, many of you mentioned, you know, the ways that it impacts employee engagement, and, you know, ultimately those sorts of things impact the bottom line in a positive way, and you know, it's a win-win-win. And so that's really what conscious capitalism is based on. The original study showed that over a 15-year period, the companies that fit these principles, they ended up beating the S&P 500 by, you know, like 10 times over a 15-year period. So they're more financially successful as well. And so we said at Conscious Capitalism Rochester, what if we came to be known in Rochester as a hub of conscious capitalism, you know, where we can, you know, not only if it works at the company level, to have more engaged employees, to impact the bottom line and those sorts of things. What if it could be a regional talent attraction and retention strategy? It could be a regional impact on the bottom line, so to speak, and really an economic development strategy for Rochester. And that's what we try to do anyways, is to be able to take these little nuggets of wisdom and these great case studies, like the work that you all have been doing, to be able to hopefully share it around Rochester and really elevate the consciousness, so to speak, of Rochester. And so grateful for your willing, not only for the work that you've done, but for your willingness to share it as well. So the first question, I'll remind any attendees to just throw any questions that they have into the chat, but I certainly have a few that can get us started. And I'd be curious just to hear, you know, kind of what inspired the creation of this kind of this program, maybe what motivated it, and then you know, how did it fit in with the RTS Way? Was that already existing, or how did the RTS Way piece get created?
Amy, do you want to field that one?
Sure, let me take myself off mute. That's a great question. Let me start by saying that I'll start with the end of that, with the RTS Way. Andrew, that was something that really was born out of a formal recognition program that we had previously, which was called CARE. What we discovered around CARE was that it really wasn't necessarily connected to our mission or our vision or our values. It was just kind of this separate thing over here. Courtesy, attitude and attire, responsiveness, and exceeding expectations. I will never forget what the acronym is, but when you look at that and then you look at our vision, our mission, and our values as they were, there was just not a connection. So the RTS Way became that bridge and really aligned our vision, our mission, and our values. And the beauty of that is the behaviors that came from that work for the RTS Way just happened to fall in line with our existing values. And those behaviors came from a survey that we launched with our employees across the organization to ask them, you know, on their best day at RTS, what does it look like? Or what are you doing? Or how are you feeling? What does it look like? And so those behaviors that you see linked to the values, that's our workforce telling us that's how they want to feel and be at work at RTS. So I really love that, because that's really kind of just propelled us into this kind of new, I would say, evolving culture, right? The RTS Way. So that was our most current endeavor, and the timing, I can't remember exactly when that came in, but it's been over a year now, I believe, or close to. So backing up to your previous question around how, you know, how did this come to be? What inspired us? Well, it was I think for RTS and our leadership team, it was our community and our workforce. You know, we're standing here, you know, at a point in time where we have to change. It's not a question of, you know, if, it's when, and the when was now. So we really tried to pull out that value that was existing, albeit embedded in another value. So we pulled that out, diversity and inclusion, and made it its own, you know, value as it should be. And from that, the moment we did that, that is when the organization made a commitment to say, okay, you know, now how do we really bring this to life and really emulate what that means for us as an organization? And that's really how we started. It was there was a lot of work that went into that, even just trying to figure out how do we get started. But that is kind of the story of how we got to where we are today. So I'm hoping that answered your questions.
Yeah, thanks, Amy. I actually have a follow-up, and I don't know whether you want to take it or someone else, but Bob Freeze is asking, you know, what were some of the early challenges? Because I know that it seems like you've got a lot of great momentum and positive feedback going, and it kind of starts to get that feedback loop. But what were some of the early challenges in implementing this and or in getting, you know, buy-in from employees, and how did you work through them?
Renee, do you want to field that, and we can tag team, or anybody else from the council? Really, Renee, I would say you have a really good insight into that.
Well, everyone can really join in. I'll say from one of the things that I personally worked through when we first got started was working and spending a good amount of time really creating a good understanding of what the council was meant to do, but partnering up with our leadership and our union leadership. So as you can see on the council, we have some mechanics, we have bus operators, people who work different types of schedule than a traditional Monday through Friday 8 to 5 office job that can fit in easily a 2-hour meeting or are used to those kind of things. So working closely with that group to get their support, to get their support and really making that happen, working in our organization with scheduling was definitely a hurdle that took a lot of time to work through. So I'll say that was probably one of the challenges I found with this, but we were able to work through that. And for 2 years, you know, all of our employees on the council, we all know that obviously if there's something going on at work and that relates to your job, that's going to take priority over going to a meeting or participating in something. But we've really established a great connection with leaders to make it possible for members to participate, not only in a meeting that might be here at the work site, but doing things like the YWCA Stand Against Racism and going out into the community, participating in workforce diversity network meetings at other locations, all of those things. So I would say that was a challenge, but also a great celebration for where we've come over the last couple of years. Anyone else want to mention some of the other things that we've worked through?
I think some of the other pieces we worked through related to people who didn't know each other. You know, some of us knew each other, some of us didn't know each other, depending on where their jobs took them, what their schedule had been. And you're asking people to come together and have some very difficult conversations and discussions with people they don't know that well. They don't know how is somebody going to respond if I say, you know, this bothers me, or I like that, or you know, we're very different people, and you're kind of throwing us all into a room and, hey, talk about all this hard stuff. And it took, we spent a lot of time with Kit and building, and I think from the employee's perspective, everybody wanted it to succeed. So everybody was willing to put in the effort and start some of those conversations and dip their toe in the water and say, and see how people reacted to different things. And it took some time, but it was, everybody in the room had already made that commitment to be there and wanted to do this. And with a little bit of time and effort and support, we were able to work through a lot of that and become a very cohesive, supportive team.
Another thing that we had to work through early on is geographic separation. We have offices spread out geographically in multiple counties. So the way that we've been able to address that is people like Karen, Jose, Jasmine advocating for groups who aren't visible because they're located in either in different buildings or in different counties, and constantly repeating to the council, okay, so how are we going to make this meaningful for our people in Wyoming County, or how are we going to reach this? How do we tackle that? And that often, we kind of felt like that was a big obstacle, but we've made traction because it was a constant reminder. We have to advocate for everybody in the organization, despite the distance. And then the piece that we're dealing with currently, of course, everybody is COVID. How do you bring people together to have face-to-face interactions and create those bonds in the midst of the pandemic? So that's where things like what Enzo was discussing, the forum conversations, have been crucial. And then just to constantly look for ways of how do we get people to engage in conversation with each other and use the technologies that we have in order to do that.
A lot of great insights. Thank you so much. A couple other questions coming in. I'm going to combine a couple with a similar theme from Kevin and from Angela coming in. Really curious, you mentioned kind of the employee engagement and retention and things like that. And they were curious to hear how turnover has been impacted since the program. And Angela specifically wanted to know how this has impacted really the frontline employees like bus drivers and what they're, if you've seen any impact in that area.
Amy, do you want to?
Yep. So let me talk about our turnover. We traditionally or historically have very low turnover to start with. I think we have some very specialized positions, and in that, you know, we're lucky in that way that we do have folks who have long careers with us. The challenge does lie with making sure that we are impacting that frontline employee, and that is part of, you know, the goal of this council is to reach out and to be more visible, which is difficult in our environment. We don't see a lot of our employees on a daily basis, so what becomes important is getting that feedback, so that, you know, when we do get the feedback, we're reaching out to everyone, and then we're looking at it in terms of, you know, this is all feedback from, say, our RTS Monroe bus operators. This is all feedback from our Seneca County operators or office staff. So we have a way of kind of quantifying, you know, pockets of maybe really good engagement and then opportunities for improvement through those surveys that we do. So the challenge continues to be to really impact, right, the frontline workers so that they feel as though they are included in this and that they belong, because they are a lot of times not present. You know, they're out on the road, or they're working on buses, and, you know, that's our mission. That's what we have to do. So that's why we continue to work at it. We do get in front of them quite a bit. I will say Renee and Dan in the council spend a great deal of time. We call it in-service training, getting in front of when we have the captive audience of our bus operators and our maintenance staff and our other regional locations. We get in front of them and we talk about the council and the value that it brings to the organization. And that's a commitment that individuals have made to take the time to do that. Saturdays, early mornings, late nights, when we can get in front of all of our employees. So I think the bottom line is it comes down to that commitment. And if you have that top down and bottom up, you will be more successful. If you give your council or whatever group it is the autonomy to do what they need to do, you'll be more successful. The flexibility, and let the council own it. You know, we'd like to call it a grassroots movement at RTS. I truly believe it is, because the council has created everything that you're seeing here. So I'm not sure if that really answered the question. I went off on a little bit of a tangent.
Actually, Dan, do you want to weigh in a little bit too?
I did. You could probably tell by me leaning into the computer. Just a couple of things, and I see some of the questions here. We have seen positive feedback from the surveys, that Amy spoke about. You know, we get written comments, and so many times the efforts that the company has made in this regard have been given positive feedback, specifically the wellness and this council. So that's something very tangible that we see, and we see it, I think, more and more with each survey that comes out. We hope that that continues. This is going to take time. It's going to take time, and it's going to take continuous effort. And additionally, somebody else asked a question about the leadership being involved in this efforts, and it couldn't happen without that. And we're fortunate to have a CEO, Bill Carpenter, who is very committed to the whole idea of culture and inclusion and diversity, and it's working. The other thing is resources. Budgets are tough everywhere, especially in this time, but we do have to make room for these kind of efforts, and they're not crazy expensive, but they're not cheap either. If you want to see results, you have to pay for them in many ways, and you have to have that commitment that everybody here has talked about, and fortunately we have it here. By the way, it wasn't, I'm not sure any of us were here before, but there was a prior effort here made similarly years ago, and it didn't take off for whatever reason. So we were aware of that, and we challenged ourselves to make sure that didn't happen again this time. And through everybody's effort, it hasn't. And indeed, it's been just the opposite, quite the success.
Thanks so much, Dan. You preempted my next question, so that was perfect about the leadership buy-in. So Renee is asking about how you approach the equity piece. Many organizations have started more transparent approaches, through their HR. I know that you mentioned that you signed on to the Declaration of Racism as a Public Health Crisis. We did a Conscious Capitalism meeting over the summer about how it's not only a public health crisis, but should also be a business imperative. So would be really curious to hear, some of the either concrete things that you've done or things that are in the works or planned or in process on the racial equity and inclusion piece.
I'll chime in just to say that something tangible that we have done over the last couple of years it is with our recruitment process, and more specifically with our hiring and interviewing process. So it may seem very simple, but it's something that was not happening previously, and that was we now have cross-functional interview teams. So, the hiring manager must select other panelists from other parts of the organization to be a part of their interview team, so that you're getting a broader perspective on a candidate when we're interviewing for hiring. Something very simple, but for us, these are baby steps that we have to take before we can really move to the next level. So that is a work in progress. I'm not sure Dan or Renee or anybody else if you'd like to chime in, but that's one tangible, I would say, example of something that we've done that we know is making a difference, at least in terms of candidates getting second interviews and really vetting those candidates as we move through that process. Anybody else? I will also let you know that, through our applicant tracking system software, which is relatively new, we are able to look at our data in terms of candidates, who is applying for our positions, and then, how do we impact that externally when we go out to recruit. That's been historically a challenge for us, and we continue to work on that. We are actually working with a consultant right now who is kind of in the phase of coming up with some ideas for us. So to Dan's point about committing efforts and resources and money, that is one way that we're doing that, hiring a consultant to help us with that, really that equity piece specifically.
I'll add one more thing too, and really, you know, as we showed it with our wellness programming committee and this council of, from an equity standpoint, making an opportunity to be part of this group and many other special projects or event committees and activities, and making sure that everyone in the organization has those opportunities to participate. That's been also a great accomplishment and an area we're really focused on too. So just one more way to try and be equitable and inclusive in what we're doing in our organization.
Very nice. Renee Frazier, who asked the question, said that is huge. So you got some positive affirmation there. We've got a question from another Renee Rosenkrantz, that maybe speaks a little bit to what Amy was mentioning in terms of bringing in some folks from the outside, you know, some subject matter experts on some of these things. Renee Rosenkrantz was asking regarding the wellness programming, but maybe with the equity programming as well, you know, the resources, additional training, workshops. How much are you trying to produce internally versus, you know, external partnerships? And what advice would you give or recommend on kind of trying to find that right balance between the two?
Well, I'll start and welcome everyone else on our council to chime in, but it's kind of a mix. I don't think there's a perfect formula. We have found great success with working with Kit for this council. We've also leveraged our relationship with Kit to help her with some other work within teams here at the organization. This group is pretty actively involved in the Workforce Diversity Network, those meetings in that group. So we lean on those folks as well often to help us, maybe within small groups, but also sometimes in larger ones. We've recently been working with our leadership team with Kevin Beckford to help us in that regard. We also really partner up with plenty of other organizations who are very well versed in this. And what I've learned in the last few years in this role is that everyone who's doing something on this in this space wants to share and wants to learn from one another. So we've spent lots of work with the U of R, with Excelis and their team, and they've offered opportunities to attend their internal trainings to get ideas, and they've joined us here for some as well. Also some folks from Paychecks where they've been doing a lot of work too. So, you know, my take is that really any organization that's putting any effort into this, we really try to support one another and help and call on each other whenever we can. As we go forward, as you know, Sarah and Enza and Karen and Dawn talked about some of the things we're doing with the council, these grassroots efforts to engage all of our employees in our future plans. You know, we do plan to do even more and bring in more experts. This council has recently spent some time with Common Ground Health. Dan helped us learn more about things going on in our own community, not only just because of the work that we do in the community we serve, but our employees live here in the area too. So how do we get a better understanding of what's going on and what drives the work that we do? Anyone else on the council have other things that I'm forgetting about some of the groups we work with?
The only thing I'd like to add is it's not just about the groups we work with. What's great about the council and just RTS as a whole is that they're very welcoming for us to, as individuals, put our own input and feedback in there. So many of the council members you see here have done a lot of their own research and brought that to the council, including links and videos and books and just all kinds of education materials that we've brought on board. And I think it's really helped the whole group to just grow together.
Great, thanks for that. I'm actually curious, just kind of like a general question, and maybe anybody could take this one, but kind of you know, along the lines of, again, thinking about some of the business leaders, business owners maybe that are attendees right now, or the many that will watch this recording. Is there anything, you know, stumbles along the way, or things you wish you would have known when you started this journey, or kind of, you know, advice to those who may be you know, a few years behind but headed down a similar path?
I would say that the perspective should be to keep in mind that it won't happen overnight. I think Dan kind of touched on that a little bit. Both our wellness program and this council started very slow, very small, and just kept at it. And it kept evolving and becoming more and more engaged and bigger, and we had more to share. So I wouldn't be discouraged if you start a program and you have, you know, a handful of participants. I would count that as a success and just continue to keep hanging in there, because it will grow. It has totally blown up over the last few years, both committees.
Hi guys, my name is Jasmine. So I just want to talk about the importance of the team building aspect. I feel like that was a really important thing, that we gained trust and like sort of a family within each other first before we could go out and really make a difference outside as well. So that was a very important part.
We also identified communication as one of the very primary initial goals in getting to know each other, how we communicate with each other on touchy subjects, life experiences, things like that. And also how we would bring that out to our workforce. So, for example, when we are having forums and we have subjects that are a little bit more sensitive, we didn't know what are the right phrases and words, and Kit helped us with a lot of that type of stuff. So I would say that, you know, you work on your communication, on how you interact with individuals, and use that as a guide to deliver whatever initiatives that you're going to put out there.
I just really quickly want to add to what Jasmine said. I think a really important part of our team with cultural inclusion, every meeting, we set aside the first 10 or 15 minutes to just kind of all check in and see how we're doing. And this is not just a professional check-in. That trust that we built as a team was so solid that it would be personal things many times, probably even most times, that we would check in about. And that built that foundation of trust and then kept that going throughout the 2 years that we've been together, which is why we really struggled with how we were going to bring in the new team and have that same trust with a less amount of time together, which is why we built that onboarding committee. Trust is key.
The other piece, because of the slow start, again, building on what Jasmine had said, we did take a lot of time to build that trust. And after a period of time, you know, people started asking, well, what are you guys actually doing? Because we weren't projecting out right away. We were trying to get ourselves in order, and started realizing after a period of time that we were so focused on making ourselves a cohesive, trusting group that we weren't communicating back out to the organization what we were really doing. And it started to build a little anxiety. It's like, oh, you know, you guys take off for 2-hour meetings and you're having breakfast and you're talking, but what are you actually accomplishing? And we did figure out that we needed to go back and communicate that these are some of the things we're working on. These are some of the topics. It's going to take us some time to roll this out because we need to build it. And, you know, we need you to be patient, that we really are working on things, and we really will be rolling out some different ideas and concepts and communications, but it's taking us some time to kind of work as a group and develop where we're taking this group as a whole.
I would just say in closing around that is that it's worth the time, it's worth the effort. We've learned so much along the way. We've accomplished a lot. Each time our group is working on anything and together, we continue to learn more. And when we look at all of this work, there's no perfect way to do it. There's no finish line. It's really just being committed to it and being interested and invested to keep moving the efforts forward. But we're fortunate that we really have seen some great results. We know we have plenty of room to grow, and we're just in a great spot to keep doing that.
Yeah, some really great answers, you know, all around the horn there. So I really appreciate that. Bob Whipple is asking a little bit about the council specifically. You know, it sounds like you've got a great problem to have, that there's more and more people that want to be involved, and wondering a little bit if it how to make everyone feel included. Obviously, not everyone can be on the council. Are there other ways that you've how do you maybe try to select people for it, at this point, and or how do you try to keep people that maybe can't get selected because there's, just for different reasons, you have to have some size, that works for these conversations and things. Are there any ways that you've found to really try to keep other people included and really invested in the journey?
Well, I'll start an answer to that question. It's a great question, especially as we're in this kind of recruitment part 2, where we are opening up the opportunity for more people to be involved and represent something and be part of this council. It's funny, we've been getting that question from some employees as this recruitment process has been going on of, well, how many people are you going to add? And this group has discussed this, and there really isn't a perfect set number. I think when we talk about it, it's, we need it to be a manageable group. But in the last 2 years, we've learned, as you've heard many people say, that some of the things that we have tackled as hurdles with logistics of actual meeting times, work schedules, all of those things, that we're thinking about those as we go forward. And that if we have a pretty large team, not everyone is always going to be able to be at a meeting or participate in an event or an activity. So really, it's almost more hands on deck is great. Part of the other things, as you've seen within this council, is we have some members, I think as Sarah mentioned, that have really grown and expanded and done a lot personally for their own personal interests, their passion, their development. So as this team grows, there'll be council members that'll begin leading even other small initiatives and work, and creating more smaller work teams that focus on a particular area that are part of this overall mission and vision. So it's kind of a vague answer that we don't really have a set number of how many people we'll have, but our intent is really to have, at some point in time, almost everyone in our organization would be considered a member of this, because we want to be inclusive. We want everyone to be involved in whatever way they can be.
I think it's important too to remember that every organization has people within it who are influencers and broadcasters and amplifiers. And if you have some of those people on within your council or your group, they go and then they influence, they use their abilities and their connections and their relationships, and they amplify, and it helps to reach more people and connect more people to what's going on within the formal council. So every organization has those people, and it's a matter of bringing them into the fold and ensuring that they are able to use their gifts.
Yeah, and I would say too that most council members, if not all, were interested to be on this council as part of their own personal growth and interest, whether it be not just professionally, but also personally, whether it's, racial equity or gender bias or whatever it may be. So as Renee was saying, the more people that we have a lot more perspectives, and that gives us some more room too, to be able to have kind of subcommittees that can just take on more specific initiatives as well.
I love that. Thank you. So we're getting some great feedback. Bob Freeze says, nice job. You're making a major impact in the community, and part of making me proud of being in Rochester. Kevin is saying how you learned so much and excited to share the story with others. So I'm excited to share this as well. I'm glad that we've got this recorded, but I wanted to key in on one thing that Renee said is a way to kind of wrap up, talking about just this ever-evolving journey, and you're never really done. So I'd be curious to hear what you all, as a council, what are you thinking? Is there anything in process or things that you're dreaming about over the next 5 or even 10 years of where this council could go, or what this what it would really look like for RTS to kind of fully live this RTS way and this ambitious vision that you have?
I know
I think it's
me,
partially, you know, in our name that we are called the Culture and Inclusion Council. You know, we don't call it just a diversity and inclusion because our main agenda is really just to change our culture here. And not that we have a bad culture, but I guess it's better to put it, you know, improve it, that everyone feels like we work someplace that cares about them, that is trustworthy, that is equitable, that you enjoy going to work, and that you don't feel like you're just a number or there's some bias. And particularly that can be a challenge sometimes in an organization like ours with different counties that we represent and different departments and things like, and unions. So it can create some animosity sometimes. So that's kind of I feel like one of our main goals is to make that culture feel a little bit more positive and trustworthy. I'm sorry, Karen, you were saying?
no, that's okay. That's exactly where I was going. I work in one of the regional offices. So for me, inclusion was a huge goal for me. And I really am excited about where the company has already gone, but where we are going to go as an organization with making each one of these satellite offices feel more included with the entire. It's really important, and I think we've made great strides.
Thank you.
I agree.
Any other last words?
I would say too that it seems daunting on where to start, and we also felt that way. And I'm sure that anyone on this council would be happy to help anybody along the way if they need an email address, and we can personally give them some more of our time and our perspective.
Well, you all have already been very very gracious with your time and with sharing your wisdom, and that's certainly a very gracious offer as well. Hopefully there will be some folks that take you up on it, because as we said, I think we're trying to elevate the consciousness all around Rochester, and we'd all be better off with more companies following in your footsteps, but also finding their own ways towards well-being and inclusion. So. We're really grateful for your time today, for your willingness to share, but more importantly, for the work that you're doing each and every day to increase the well-being, inclusion, and raise the consciousness in Rochester. So thank you all so much, and looking forward to seeing what the future holds for you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy
Yes.
Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.